Hi, everyone. In today's episode, I'll be talking with Whitney Ford. We've had several conversations in the past. She's been on the show before. And today we are going to talk about college because you graduate college in a few days, right?
Yeah, in 4 days.
That's so exciting. I
Yeah.
remember, oh, I'm old. I remember, I remember when I graduated. I graduated in 2014. And it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever. Um, but so what is your major?
I am graduating with an associate's degree in general studies
Okay.
from Calhoun Community College.
Uh,
Do me both.
Um, what made you do general studies?
Well, originally I was gonna do general studies, but with a concentration in social work.
Mhm.
Long story short, it just got to where um I would be complete with what I have and not um, prolong things any longer
Mhm.
um, with going ahead and doing the general study. Um, and that's kind of part of why I wanted to have this conversation. Um, if you, and I'm sure you have seen a lot of my posts and talking about preparing and just my excitement and all the feels getting ready for graduation. Somewhere in there it usually says I'm biting my tongue from saying I'm just graduating with an associate's degree. It's just you know the lowballing it in my
Yeah,
head because it's not even the outside anybody. It's me.
you are your biggest critic,
Um,
sort of like me.
um, with the I'm 28 years old. I wanted to be working on something else by now, or like I've also spoken about that the breaks that I've had to take, and uh, if this wouldn't have happened, then what age would I have been graduating with an associate's degree, and would I be working on this by now? The blah blah blah. That
I
doesn't really
completely
matter, but
understand.
it comes with it,
Yeah, I
and I
can.
wanted to talk about it because when in a lot of situations, not just with school, with you could really name anything in life.
Life happens.
You keep the snapshot of the glory of it,
Mhm.
and we don't get to relate to those that need to hear it. The mean in between.
And the struggle.
Yes, the struggle.
Yeah. I graduated at 26. So honestly, what you're talking about, kind of being like in your head and wanting to do, well, thinking like you're supposed to be doing something else and all of that. I had those feelings as well because it was like, you're 26 years old and you're only, like, and I graduated high school in 2006. And my whole, like, the plan was to go right out of high school, which I did, but life happened and
Exactly.
it took everything in me to go. And then I had um, issues with financial aid, and it was just one problem out of the other, like after the other. So I can completely understand that. And
Yeah.
you're right, not too many people talk about those moments. We only get to see all the excitement, the parties, cats and gowns. But what about the actual journey it took to get to this point and how to get over it?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, this conversation could benefit the average person.
Right.
Um, but I know unique to myself and likely to you, we get this just from the average Joe walking down the street. Oh, you don't let these things, you're not letting anything stop you. And, you're,
You're such an inspiration.
yeah, all of those
Like,
cliches. And you're you. So you know what has happened and what you wanted to happen and what has
yeah,
actually kind of has, you know, in
yeah.
a sense, stopped you. And so there's that. There's in November I had a TSA,
Hmm.
which I'm not gonna say the big long doctor word. I had to have an amputation of one of my toes on my foot.
Hmm.
Um, and even that, because I signed up for school a month before that happened.
Oh, wow.
I almost graduated last summer
Hmm.
with the class. I had one class left, and that was a math class. With my spinal bifida, I have hydrocephalus, and one of
Hmm.
the things that makes hard to grasp is math,
Hmm.
and
I absolutely hate math.
that's pretty much what took me so long.
I hate math.
So, I would say with that, it's kind of like you, and I believe people mean well when they say it,
Hmm.
but I know where I want it to be and why I'm not where I want it to be.
Right.
Um, so to you, it's like, oh, you're not letting it stop you from, doing normal things. But I think that we need to tailor that a bit and make it okay to, and it's gonna sound wrong on some ears, but make it okay to let it stop you sometimes because sometimes it needs to stop you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, your health or your, when I say your health, I don't just mean your physical health,
Yeah.
all
Mental,
aspects of your health.
emotional,
You know,
all of that plays a
you
part.
need to pause
Yep.
and make it okay to pause because of whatever that might be.
Exactly.
Insert thing here.
Exactly.
And that's just what the thing I want to talk about. I feel like the listeners of this particular podcast would benefit from hearing.
Yeah, definitely. Because I honestly, what I think personally, when this conversation is brought up, it's mostly talked about with our able-bodied counterparts. Like when they,
Yeah.
when they have things going on in their lives and how they have to put a pause on a goal or anything like
Yeah.
that. But it's rarely talked about when it comes to someone with a disability.
Yeah. And just the things piling on, when I started school in 2014, which was a year after I graduated high school.
Mhm.
Um, I think, and every pause, not all of them were due to the same thing, but the 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 class that I struggled with was always a math class. I went on even before this. I do want to say, and it's the I understand why it's necessary, but and I don't know if this is your experience, but even in that mean in between from high school to deciding what I was going on to do in college and getting rehabs and things like that involved to try to help and all those things. You get tested to even
Yeah,
to see if you're competent enough to go to college.
yeah. I didn't have that experience because I kind of did it without them knowing. I did it without them knowing because I don't know, from my experience with getting like rehabilitation services involved, it has always been horrible. So I tend to do things without them, and then they find out, and they be like,
Yeah,
"Well, we could have helped you with this," but then when I actually ask them for help, be like, "Oh, we can't do anything about it."
pretty
So,
much. Sounds about right.
so I usually do everything without their help. Um, but I definitely struggled with math a lot in college. Um, if I could have, I would not have got I would not have taken that class at all. Like, because that was my only holdup. I absolutely hate math. Because I had dyscalculia where numbers, I can look at numbers, but in
Mhm.
my head they kind of like flip. So I can come up with an answer and it could be close to the right answer, but because I did the problem wrong because of the way the numbers flipped in my head, um,
Right.
it was just a whole situation. And so what I did, this college that I went to, because I went to an online college. So the college that I went to, they had tutors and all of that. So I spent most of my time whenever I had to go to a tutor, it was for math. And it was every single year that I attended, I went for math because nothing stuck. And it was just like,
One of the years, I was going consistently to a tutor for all of my classes because it was available. So I was like, hey, let's do all of them. And it was because I came up with a plan that I was going to just get all the other things out of the way because I knew math was going to be
Hmm.
my battle because it always been my battle. And then as soon as I got ready to just like, okay, you've gotten through all the stuff that I knew of, just the composition and the all those, and then it got defunded. Right. So that and there was more. It's just so many things I think you said earlier that kind of just pile on, and I think in the back of my mind, and I'm not saying that in a negative light. They test you because I understand they have to test you, so because they need a paper trail and they need to show things to get things done. But the effect that had on me particularly, because I can't speak for anyone else.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a person that's just like, okay, well, I have to continue to prove myself. Um, and I've never felt like I necessarily had to prove myself to everyone else, but I've always been about proving myself to myself.
Yeah.
Um, and that was there through the whole experience and probably will continue to be there in the future when I continue because okay, now I on paper I can do it, so now I have to do it.
Right.
Um, Even before the TSA, when I last summer I thought I was going to be going through this exact phase, but I didn't pass the class that I just passed, which is a math class.
Hmm.
Um, and before the TSA, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease.
Hmm.
Um, Before that, it was something else. It's just always something.
Yeah.
And I think I have a. It's hard to find that sweet. It's always been a thing for me to find that sweet spot between getting it done and pushing myself too hard.
Yeah.
Um, or just pushing myself in a healthy manner, or just pushing myself to the limit because I feel like I need to do it.
Yeah.
Um, Even now, because now I'm looking at okay, what am I going to do next and everything, and I had to really like. Actually, a friend of mine had to tell me you need to live a little life in between that. You can't don't just jump back into things because that again, I'm 28. I want to have another degree and do this, and
Like I
that.
said earlier, I'm my biggest critic. So if I feel like I could be doing more, I'm gonna try to push myself
Mm-hmm.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could kind of burn myself out as well. And then I'll have this spurt of energy to do things. And then it's like
Then
after
crash.
I start to do it, it's like, oh, I'm crashing. I don't feel like doing anything. So I can kind of understand that. Like, but definitely take some time for yourself. And, you know,
Yeah, I decided to give it until spring of next year.
yeah,
Um, just because, and and I think um having a disability that I've always had, I've
Mhm.
always been doing that. And I guess the older I've gotten, I've become more conscious of it because, I think when we're children, we get a lot of, yeah, you're, we get accolades for pushing ourselves like that.
Yeah,
And then we learn that that's, we probably shouldn't be doing that anymore, if that makes sense.
yeah. But
Like,
it doesn't go on until like after you reached adulthood that you start noticing you don't really need to continue to, but it feels good to be like the accolades and the achievement. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you can slow down. You can, it doesn't always have to be do this
and then,
or, yeah,
and then I want to say the older you get, the accolades kind of stop
it
too.
does. Because
Because it's
you
more,
no longer have someone, it seems like you don't have people celebrating, or you
now it's
don't,
just like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah.
And it is, but at the same time, it's like, this is a
It's
lot of work.
sometimes, it's, it
Does
sometimes
anybody
feels
see
good to
that?
have people
Yeah,
celebrating your achievements.
yeah.
But then that's where learning to celebrate yourself comes
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of transitioning. And that's also when I want to get out there because
Okay.
I would call it that amongst other things. Yes. I would
Hmm.
call it emotional break, mental health break, um, self-care break, whatever, because it takes on different things. So I wouldn't, I guess, limit it to one thing, one name, because it's situational.
Yeah. And in a way, it kind of affects many different things. Like, because when you are emotional or you're having an emotional moment, it can affect you mentally and physically as
Yes,
well, and vice
that,
versa for
yeah,
for anything else.
that's one of the things that I like to talk about. Um, Especially when it comes to transitioning, because going back to all those things that I said have come up in my college, I guess you would call it college career,
Mm,
um, with my health or because it hasn't just been with my physical health,
mm.
but they all do affect each other. Your wellness is, I think it's about being whole and
Completely.
your different aspects of health being social, physical, emotional, environmental. When one is being affected,
It takes a toll on
the
every.
rest of them get affected.
Yeah.
Or, like the Bible puts it, the body is, we're one body with many members. Or it talks about basically, and I'm paraphrasing, like if you hit your foot, you're you're you're
You're
going
gonna
to you're gonna
feel it
feel
in
it
your whole
almost
body.
everywhere.
Yeah, because of the nerve.
Yeah. So when those things have happened, like the TSA being the most recent thing that affected me and almost, I would say in all of the ways that I
Mm-hmm.
just named,
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, and to a lesser degree than when it first happened, it still is,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably always will, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's something important to keep in mind for ourselves and for others, because I think when we, going back to what I said about facing adversity, I think that's part of the reason that connects with why we don't face it
Mm-hmm.
the way we should, because a lot of times we want to just like, okay, I know I'm hurting right now, but like, I need to be okay so I can do this.
Yep.
So, um, I'm just not gonna worry about it. I was thinking the other day, just having a thought about how we always say, focus on the good. And that's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it can it can be a slippery slope into the kind of the same thing as not
Yeah.
focusing. I mean, not facing adversity,
Yeah.
because when you're focusing on something,
Mm-hmm.
you're 9 times out of 10 ignoring something else
Yep.
or not giving something else attention. And that's a good coping method, but it should be temporary.
Yeah.
Um, and all of that goes into that, taking that emotional or whatever it's necessary for it at the time break, because, you know, sometimes we focus on the good for so long until,
It
we kind of
becomes,
can't, because that thing that we're ignoring is kind of getting louder and louder.
yeah,
And we need to take time to look it in its eyes.
exactly. Like I said last week in my podcast about negative thoughts, I was like, it's going to sound weird, but sometimes you just have to feel those negative
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah.
Sometimes you have to just sit in it so that you can get through it instead of trying to get over it and acting like they're not there. We were told to just learn how to, okay, you can fall, but you got to dust yourself off and keep moving. And because we were so young, it was just always been ingrained in our heads to just dust ourselves off and keep moving.
And we were never, it was never a conversation of, sometimes that takes longer, sometimes it's quicker. It just varies, you know?
Yeah. And then they don't really talk to you about how to get through it and how if you don't, it can affect you for longer than it should.
Hmm.
And honestly, going to college with that same mindset only makes it worse because in college, a lot of things can go wrong. You can get a bad grade, you can forget something important, and then it's not a moment where you can just dust yourself off and keep moving because you don't have anyone there to be like, okay, it's okay. You're going to be okay. you kind of just have to sit in those feelings. And if you're as hard on yourself as I am on myself, then sitting in those feelings can only just spiral out of control.
Yeah. And then there's the aspect that I don't think I've brought up yet of being first generation.
Definitely first generation.
Because there's so much you don't know and there's nobody to tell you.
Tell you,
Um,
I'm first generation too.
with with the when we were talking about the thing with hydrocephalus and math being just hard to grasp.
Mm,
The first time I took, because I had to start, of course, at a low level of math and build up
mm,
because of, you know, the hard, it being so hard to grasp for me.
mm,
And I didn't know that because in K through 12, a D isn't great, but it's passing enough for you to go on. I took, I believe it was 098. By the way, I took 098 a couple of times before I could even get to um 110. But I don't know if it was 098 or if it was 100. But one of the math classes, it was a prerequisite for the class I needed for my degree, which was the one that I just took 110, but I had to do 098, 100, then that. Um, and I passed it to my knowledge with the D, and then when I went on to sign up for 100, took 100. Yeah, I think that's what happened. And then just for after I took it, for it to be notified that, hey, you didn't even do this right. So this doesn't matter.
right.
And being first generation, I didn't know that you have to have at least a C. And that felt like the end of the world because from where I had to start at 098. This is 100, and it's still not going towards my degree, but I have to take it. And then when I pass this, I'm like, okay, now I can take what's actually gonna count,
Yeah.
and then I still can't take it. And so that alone, I didn't get back in school for 4 years.
Yeah, because
Um,
it felt like a setback that you wouldn't be
yeah,
able to get over.
yeah, and I honestly didn't think I was at that point because I told you even before I got to 100, I took 098 at least twice, or three times. And so it kind of just felt like I'm never going to pass this. So
Right.
let me just reroute and do something else with my life.
Hmm.
Um, so for a minute there, that's what I was doing. Um, and then just this past, well, not this past, is it this past spring? Yeah, I think in spring of 2022, I got back in school. Um, and I didn't do math yet.
Hmm.
Um, I did um, health and um, a history class. I think that was it. And then in the summer, I did do a math class, which was the one that I just had to do again now. And it's finite math. And honestly, I don't know what possessed me to take it in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that wanting to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um this teacher I hear is like really good at helping you and all this stuff. But the summer semester is the fastest semester of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already not a person that can grasp something quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't know what possessed me to do that. But I did. And um with that came a huge, again, like feeling like defeat
Yeah.
because, like I told you, I thought, as far as I knew, I was going to graduate last summer,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't going to pass with, I wasn't going to graduate with flying colors, but I was going to graduate.
Yeah.
Um, so, because all the way leading up to the end of the class, I had about probably a D or C, and when final grades were put in, it fell back down. This is after booking, doing all the things in preparation, thinking this is it. And one of the things I talked about, if you, I mentioned if you looked at some of my posts about this particular subject, was not only the physical things that happened throughout those years,
Mm-hmm.
but the family members and loved ones that I've lost.
Yeah.
And that summer, um, I had a conversation with my younger cousin who
Mm-hmm.
just passed in February about who, you know, because again, as far as I was concerned, I was graduating then. So I'm gonna be graduating in August. Another thing I didn't know being first generation was that there wouldn't be a ceremony during the summer. So I'm thinking there's gonna be a ceremony. Um, and that I wanted her to be there, and she's telling me, I'm in school for this, and you need to be there, and for it to be happening now, and she's passed away. Um, that's grief, a lot of grief in itself.
Yeah.
Just even when I was officially given the apply to graduate basically email, my first reaction, you asked me when we greeted each other, you're excited, I'm excited, I'm a lot of things, um sometimes I'm sad though
Yeah.
because of things like that, and she wasn't the only one, she's just the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
um and I talked to my therapist about that, and she advised me to kind of just incorporate them into the the occasion. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did with my cat.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just one of those things. with talking about the mean in between because I'm not the only one. Like we see, like when we as a community celebrate with Megan Thee Stallion when she graduated,
Hmm.
losing her mother, and grandmother, and just all the things she's been through. Of course, she's she kind of had to. She's a celebrity, so everybody almost in a not really kind of way went through it with her. Um, and that's something that I personally was inspired by. Um, and that's why I want to have this conversation, just because a lot of us have some things that could have stopped us or delayed things for us.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative, I'm aware it can be seen as a negative thing to talk about it, but it can be healing
Yeah.
to talk about it. So,
I completely understand that. You are exactly right. Um, it's very difficult having to um wanting to celebrate and being excited, but having to deal with loss and everything else.
yes, everything. I mean, from every aspect, it kind of just keeps coming back to that
Yeah.
because there's been losses of loved ones, the grieves of, when I made the particular post about the caps, I wanted to go into more depth, but it ended up being too long, so I had to change it.
Mm,
um, but I got into school in 2014, like I said. In 2017, I think that's probably around the time that we came across each other because that was when I was Miss Wheelchair,
mm,
Alabama. And just around the time of, and I was in school then. That was probably um, when it was starting to get long. um, but I was crowned in April of 2017. And then I want to say in February of 2017, um, I hope this is still charting. I lost one of my other cousins and asked myself then, and it's important to, because you get a different answer every time.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes, it is to keep going. Sometimes it's to pause.
Yeah.
And I wondered, should I be keep doing this? Um, because this is heavy
Yeah.
for to deal with. And then I was crowned, and kind of felt like that was what he would have wanted me to do. 2019, I lost my maternal grandmother in June, and then my paternal grandmother that December. Just after that, or in between that, the month before my paternal grandmother passed away, um, I had a surgery on my ovaries, which was kind of scary for me because that was like my first not related to spina bifida emergency surgery. And I talked about with someone about the same day that I want to say the same day that I got the news of my paternal grandmother's passing was when I went for, the initial checkup, make sure everything's feeling okay and all of that. And I got hit with this like, out of left field. You look like you might be kind of narrow and, things like might run into issues with fertility and what have you that I didn't know how to feel about
Hmm.
just because I didn't ask for that. And one of my things with the passing of my grandmothers was because I look so much like them that, well, when I have children, um, I don't know, it would carry them on or bring them peace or something. And so to be hit with that was crazy. And the following year, another one. So it's been very back to back. And even in 2015, around that time, 2015, somewhere early in my college career, um, my family broke up. And so I guess in the midst of all of these things is how I learned what my niche was, I guess, because I really had to ask myself tough questions. I really had to, and like I said, the answer can be different every time. The answer is not always to push yourself. Sometimes the answer is to push yourself or to speak or not to speak or, all of the questions one might ask themselves. So it's a blessing in disguise, or bittersweet or, whatever one might put there.
Yeah,
But it's still something to face,
yeah,
like the topic at hand, I guess. To
yeah,
take time, in between. And okay, you got through it. Congratulations on your triumph. Now let's deal with it.
yeah.
Book, Sister, how are you?
Hmm.
And it was published for and during Mental Health Awareness Month. And it is on sale for $5 off until its birthday. Well, for the rest of the month, because its birthday is pretty much the end of the month.
Okay,
Its birthday is May 27th.
okay. So, yeah, plug that. Let everybody know where they can get it.
It's on hand, so you could order it through me. The link to purchase it through me is in all of my bios on my social media.
Okay,
Um, my link tree. You can find the link there. It's also on Amazon.
okay. I'll plug all your social media and everything in the video when I edit and stuff, so everyone will know where to get it.